What is up, my game dev gangster, and welcome to the continuation of my travel to 100 videos every single day. Probably going to be 200 because, it's me, but just kidding. Now we have Unreal Engine. It's been a long while since I have created an Unreal Engine tutorial, and I'm going to create a few of Unreal Engine tutorials. So yeah, stick around, subscribe to see more. Anyways, let me show you the game that we are going to create. So over here, as you can see in my editor, this is our level, and we have obstacles. Basically, we need to maneuver here these walls. We need to maneuver these obstacles over here, maneuver these obstacles over here, and the goal is to get till the end where we are going to win the game. And of course, we also have the enemy as additional pressure for us because the enemy is going to start chasing us. If I hit the play button, you will notice after a few seconds, the enemy is going to start to run towards us. There you go. When it gets to us, game over and we're dead. So I will need to hit play again, and now I am going to try and run and, defeat the enemy, but I don't think that is going to be possible. I need to avoid these because they're going to slow me down. If they hit me, they're going to slow me down because the enemy is probably chasing me. There he is. I saw him. So moving here, maneuvering these. Also, these fireballs, if they touch you, they will kill you. So make sure that you avoid the fireballs as well. Let's try to do that. Hopefully, can I reach this? Where is the enemy? Oh, there he is. Okay. It's like I'm playing the scariest game ever, but this is the basic game, There he is. I saw his reflection. Come on, let's try. Can I make it? Can I make it? Because even if we go here, there you go. I won. Okay. Anyways, that was our game. As you can see, it's a simple one. It's a recap to Unreal Engine because I didn't do a tutorial for a very long time. As I said, a recap, a new game. It's a semi-beginner, semi-intermediate game, so it's not completely a beginner game. I expect you to know a few things, but I will also explain along the way. Anyways, I'm just going to shut up teacher, because you want to learn the game. So yeah, fire here from awesomedudes.com. Hit the like, subscribe to see more of these videos because more are coming, and enjoy in the course. Okay, my game dev gangster, now that we saw the game that we are going to create, let us create a game. So over here, I have the Unreal Engine project browser, blah, blah, blah. You know the good stuff. So click here for the games. We're not going to create anything for film, television, and whatnot. You're not a director, so don't try to be one. I'm going to click here next, and we're going to select a blank project. Now, from the blank project, we're going to click next over here. And over here, we're going to select these settings. So blueprints, maximum quality, ray tracing disabled. Over here, make sure that you have this. This is really important. So make sure with starter content. So make sure that you have that. Do not create a project without it, okay? And over here, as you can see, the name of my project is Unreal Platform. I'm simply going to click here, create the project, and we are going to pray so that the Unreal Engine will take mercy upon us. And look at this over here. My VR is turning on, whatever. So I'm going to turn that off and probably come back when the project loads. And finally, here we are. Unreal Engine took mercy upon us, and after a gazillion years, we are here. Just kidding, but anyways, this is the default project that you see. You will probably know that, as I explained in the beginning. If I didn't mention in my, because I can forget, if I didn't mention in my head talking video that, well, you need to know the basics of Unreal Engine, well, there you go. So now what we're going to do over here is in the content. As you can see, this is my content browser at the bottom left corner. So over here, I have the starter content, which is what we applied to have. Now inside the content, I'm going to right click and create a new folder. I'm going to create levels or maps. So simply going to call it maps. And at the top left corner over here where it says file, I'm going to click on that. And from file, I'm going to click here new map or new level. And over here, I'm going to select the default one. So again, when you click on that, I probably click that too quick. So new, and then I'm not going to select empty or VR or time of the day. I'm going to click on this default, and this is what we have in the default. Now, in order for us to save this, I'm going to hold Control and press S. On Windows, it's Command S, and go into the maps folder and save it. Then I'm going to call this bad boy gameplay because we are playing a game inside of that level. Now over here we have this default floor that we don't need because I'm going to delete it. And over here we have some, elements as any level default one that, well, it has. So over here I'm going to right click and create a folder. that I'm going to call other, and I'm going to put all of these over here. And when I say over here, this is in the world outliner. So right there, world outliner. If you don't see it, here under Windows, search for it, world outliner, and then you will see it. Now I'm also going to right click and create a new folder, and I'm going to call this folder levels. And for some reason it did not create that folder. Come on, is it going? Okay, it is creating it inside of the other folder for whatever reason. So I'm going to call this one level. So level, there you go. And for this bad boy, I'm simply going to place this over here, and this folder, I'm going to delete it. There you go. And this one I'm going to call other. This is just for grouping elements within our level, because we are going to have, you know, multiple things in the level and so on and so forth. And the first thing that we are going to have is going to be the ground. So I am going to right click over here and create the ground, which is going to hold, you know, the ground. And from here where it says place actors, you see this right here, place actors, you have, you know, these tabs. So you have the basics, you have the light, cinematic, visual effects, and so on and so forth. I am going to go here under volumes, or actually geometry, excuse me, and here we have a box, and we can simply drag that box, and there you go. This is going to be our ground. Of course, it's not going to look like this because we cannot walk, you know, on a box 3 by 3. So instead, what I'm going to do is I am going to reposition this box. So the X, Y, and Z location are all going to be 0. So make sure that that is all set to 0. And now I'm going to resize it, but I'm not going to resize it on the scale, because we can do that as well. As you can see, we can resize it on scale normally and everything will work. And by the way, you can also resize it by, you know, clicking on it. And then over here, you have these keys. As you can see, for example, this one, select and scale object. So you can scale it from here as well, like this. Look at that, it looks crazy and all of the good stuff. I'm going to revert it back to the default one. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this box brush, and over here you have the brush settings, you see over here, and over there you have the brush shape X, Y, and Z, and this is what I'm going to use to rescale this ground. So for our X, I'm going to set that at 20,000. So it's going to be at 20,000 on the X, and yeah, it's pretty large because it's a really cool game and a large level. And the Y axis is going to be 2,000. This is the width basically of our level, as you can see, and the Z axis is going to be only 10 because we don't need it, you know, it's only going to be 10. That's it. So I am also going to put some, you know, grass on it. I'm going to flower or water the grass and it will grow. So simply going to go here into materials, and over here we have something called ground moss. There you go. You can simply drag and drop that. And by the way, let me resize this. You can simply drag and drop that, and there you go. So over here inside of the starter content, you have the materials folder. Again, it's right there, and you can put different things. You can put a brick. So maybe our ground is going to be a brick ground, or maybe our ground is going to be like this, whatever this is. So yeah, there you go. You also have this over here, another ground. You have a glass, so it will look like the player will fall down any second. He doesn't know if it will break or not, but I'm going to be satisfied with the ground moss, and that's all there is to it. I'm going to take this box brush and rename it to ground, and I'm simply going to put this inside of the ground folder. So now we also have walls that we need to create, and I'm going to show you one trick, and that is, look at this over here. So for example, if we drag and drop a box from here, you see it doesn't have any elements on it. If I try to do this, if I go here into the starter content and materials, and let's say we want to add this brick clay on it, and if I drag it, you see it's only going to put it on one side. And if I, you know, drag more over here, you see it's putting on only sides of this box brush. So how can we fix that? Well, one of the ways to fix it is to basically do the following. So let me just delete this, and we can select here a material that we want to apply to that box. Select it over here, for example, brick clay old, and then after we have selected it over here, we can drag it from this, you see, drag it from geometry, place it over here, and automatically it will have that material applied on all sides. That is one of the ways how we can fix this. Another way how we can fix it is if we drag and drop this over here. You see, it doesn't have any material applied, so I can click on one of the sides. When I click on one of the sides, you will notice over here inside of the details panel, we have this geometry. And over here we have the select. So again, here is the details panel, here is the geometry. So when you click on that, then from the drop down list, you can click this select all adjacent surfaces. So it will select all of these surfaces, and then you can apply any material on one surface and it will be applied, you see, on all surfaces. So that's all there is to it. Let me just see over here I cannot remember which one of these. I believe this is the one that I have applied. Yep, this is the one, but it's not important. Why am I stressing about that? So over here inside of the level, I'm going to right click and create a new subfolder, and this one is going to be our walls who are going to circle the level. So I'm going to take this one and position it over here, or put it out or as a child of that folder. And this one is going to be our first wall that I'm going to call our start wall. Now the start wall is going to have some settings changed. So over here, the location for the start wall is going to be minus 9,990. This is going to be the location of the start wall, which is basically over here. The Y position is going to be 0, and the Z position is going to be 105. Which is basically, as you can see over here, placed in the middle. Now I am also going to change these, X, Y, and Z. So the X value is going to be 20 because this is a wall. As you can see, look at that, it's a wall. The Y value is going to be 2000, and the Z value is going to be 200. So I'm going to leave it as is, and there you go. So this is going to be our start wall. Now for the end wall, what we can do by selecting the start wall, we can hold Alt. So holding Alt on your keyboard, which is Options in or on Mac OS, now I can drag from here, you see, and it will create a duplicate. Right away, it will create a duplicate like this, and instead of the start wall 2, I'm simply going to call this bad boy end wall. So over here, I'm going to say end wall. And for the end wall, the position is going to be positive 9,990, which is going to simply put it over here. Everything else I'm not going to touch. We're going to leave it as is because I like it so. I like it. I enjoy it. Okay, it's not a crime. It's not nothing. I'm just kidding. But no, this is where we're going to leave it. So now what I'm going to do is again duplicate the start wall by holding Alt and moving this bad boy over here. And I'm going to click here to rename it, and I'm going to call this one right wall. There you go. And the right wall, I'm going to position it at -9 for the X position, and the Y position is going to be 993, and the Z position is going to be 99, which is basically over there, as you can see. So look at where it is. It's over there. But this time for the X scale or the brush settings for the shape, I'm going to set at 20,000. You see, it's now 20,000, but of course it's not going to look like this. Instead, for the Y, I am going to set it at 20, and 200 it is going to be on the Z axis. So this is going to be our right wall, not allowing the player to pass by on the right side. And now I'm simply going to hold Alt again and move this bad boy over here, which is going to create another wall, a duplicate of the right one. And I'm going to click over here, and from there I am going to just put this back, go back over here. Sorry for that typo, not the right wall, but this is going to be the left wall. So it is going to be left, and there you go. And I'm just going to put him, so the X location is going to be -9 for the left one. The Y location is going to be -993, and the Z location is going to be at 99. And there you go. There you go. So basically, this is going to be our level, or the play field where our player can move and all of the good stuff. Now, before I wrap this up, I'm also going to put the obstacle walls over here because it's not complicated, and why should we wait to do that? So over here, other walls, I'm going to right click on the level, create a subfolder, and I am going to call this one obstacle walls. There you go. And for this one, let me just select this brick clay old. So click on that and drag one cube over here, and there you go. Are they the same? Yeah, they can be the same color. Or, yep, yeah, I don't care. So I'm going to take this one and put it over here, and I'm going to call it obstacle wall 1. So what's going to happen with this obstacle wall, or what is this going to be? Well, basically these are going to be the walls that we position over here. One is going to be over here and over here and over here. So the player will need to go over here to pass by them like in a zigzag, you know, in a labyrinth, or however this is pronounced, I don't know. Anyways, the position X is going to be negative 7,224. On the X, that is. On the Y, we are going to say 485, and on the Z, I'm going to say 105. Now, of course, I'm going to resize this bad boy. So the size over here is going to be 140 for the X. For the Y is going to be 1,000, and for our Z, that's that. So there you go. There you go. Now, in order for us to create these, what we simply need to do is the following. Holding Alt, I'm simply going to move this bad boy, and then maybe over here like this, and then over here, and there you go. So simply make him like at the edge of the screen. And for these movement, or for the units of the movement, you can click on this over here. You see, set the position. If I hover over, it says set the position grid snap value. You can set that to 1. And now you can, you see, move this a little bit easier. Well, basically you can move it easy as well if you don't set that, but it is not moving it by 10 units or 20 units or whatever. There you go. So the player will now have to go here, then so on and so forth. You get the point. So I'm going to take both of these, and holding Alt, I'm going to duplicate it and position it over here, and there you go. So these are the obstacle walls. Now, of course, we're going to place a little bit more of these. So we are going to have more of these. One are going to be here and over here. So basically 2 more times, but that is going to be your assignment. It's not a hard one. Position them, but make it a little bit randomized in terms of in the next ones. So the next one that you position, this, for example, is going to be a little bit larger. So up to here, for example, and this one is going to be up to here or something like that, so that it is a little bit harder for the player to move and so on and so forth. We challenging for, you know, the player to pass by and all of the good stuff. So this is basically it when it comes to this first part of this tutorial. And if something was not clear, make sure that you ask in the comment down below, and I will, you know, ignore the comment, not answer. Just kidding. I will answer, and I will try to help you out. So finish up putting these obstacle walls. Don't wait, you know, in the next video I will have them set up. And yeah, pretty much that is that. And I will see you guys in the next video. What up, game dev gangsteronio? Now we have our level. It is prepared. So if I were to hit the play button, look what is happening. So basically we are somewhere here and we can float, and what the hell is this? And if I, you know, eject myself, we are going to see that our character is this, you know, sphere, whatever this is. So what the hell is going on? Well, first things first, where we are spawned is determined by this over here, the player start. And we have this, you see this player start over here, so it's this bad boy. And when you create a new level, this is created by default and all of that good stuff. So what we are going to do is we are going to, let me just see where the start wall is, it's over there. So I'm going to take the player start and I am going to move it way over here, where the starting point of the level is. So this is where my player is going to be spawned. So if I were to hit the play button, this is where we're going to be spawned. But again, we are floating and all of the good stuff. And this is, or the reason for this is because we have this default pawn player. And what the hell is that, teacher? Well, for that, we need to go here inside, well, not the editor preferences, but it's under edit and then project settings. And I'm going to place this over here, actually move the gameplay over here. So when we go into the project settings, here in the project, we have something called maps and modes. And over here, you will see that we have this default game mode. So the game mode is basically, think of it like a controller for a specific level. You can have a global game mode that is for every single level, but you can also have, game modes for every level, and think of it as a controller. He will determine who is going to be spawned as the character, which is this over here. He will also determine the HUD that can be spawned. He will determine who is the player controller, or basically the blueprint or the class that we're using to control the movement of the player, and so on and so forth. So at the moment we have this over here. This default pawn is the one that is being spawned when we run the game. That's why we see that sphere. So if I hit the play button, if I eject myself, this is that default pawn. That's why if I possess him and I try to move, we're basically floating and all of this good stuff. So this is what you see, essentially. This is what is happening. So how can we fix that? Well, we can fix that going here into the content. I'm going to right click and create a new folder. I'm going to call it blueprints. And in order for us to fix this, we need to create our own game mode. So we can right click over here and we can go and create a blueprint class. And from here, we can pick a parent class, because every single class or blueprint that we create, it needs to have a parent class. We can click on this game mode base. You see, it defines the game being played, its rules, scoring, and other phases. Basically, that is the game mode, but this is the game mode base. And we can go over here where it says all classes, click on this drop down list, and in the search box, we can filter for game mode. And we can select the game mode. As you can see, the game mode is a child of the game mode base. And if you don't know the relationship of parent and child and what that is, just go through my Unreal Engine C++ tutorial series, because they are the same principles. They talk about object-oriented programming, inheritance, polymorphism, and all of the good stuff. So instead of us selecting the game mode base, we can select the game mode, and I can click here game mode, and I'm going to call this one BP underscore Unreal Platformer underscore game mode. And there you go. So now I can go here into the project settings, and instead of this default game mode, that is the game mode base, I can select here BP Unreal Engine Platformer game mode. There you go. So automatically you see the difference over here. The difference is when I had the game mode, I could not edit any of these. So we have the default pawn, everything is default. I cannot click here to edit this, but when I select my Unreal Platformer game mode, I can select here and I can select a default pawn to be whatever I want it to be. I can also go here and select, you see, the player controller to be the, player controller and all of the good stuff. So you see my point and what is happening over here. But still, we don't have a player to select to be, to be our player, basically. So in order for us to do that, what we're going to do is over here, I'm going to right click and go blueprint class. And this time I'm going to select the character, and then I'm going to say BP underscore game character. So game character. And there you go. Voila. So I can go here inside of the project settings now, and over here instead of the default pawn, I can select my BP game character, and he will be the one that is going to be spawned. So if I hit the play button and if I eject myself, you don't see that sphere that we had previously. As you can see, we don't have it, but still we cannot even move. I'm pressing the WASD key. We cannot move, we cannot do anything, and all of that good stuff. So what we need to do in order to move? Well, we need to go and edit first, we are going to edit the game character over here. So click on it. And when we open him, there you go. So this is going to be our game character. You see this capsule? We are not going to add any meshes to him. Basically over here, you see we have the mesh. And over here, you will put a 3D model. We currently don't have. Later on, when we import the zombie model, that is going to be our 3D model. So for example, we can use that or any other 3D character that you have. But since we don't have any of those inside of our game currently, then we cannot. What we can do, because this is a skeletal mesh, we can create a static mesh over here. And for the static mesh, for example, over here, I can, take this sphere. And if I compile and save that and go over here, hit the play button, eject myself, there you go. Now we have the sphere. I can also do something like this. Instead of the sphere, I don't know, let's try this con. There you go. If I hit the play button and compile and save and go back over here and eject myself, now we are a con. So you can see that's how we can become any object that we want. It's like magic. But we're not going to do that with the static mesh, so I'm simply going to delete that component that we added. And what I'm going to do over here is I am going to add a camera. So over here, I'm going to filter the camera. And there you go. So this is the camera, and the camera, because of the following. So the camera is going to follow the player. I'm simply going to make it a child, and the location X for the camera, I'm going to set at 20, not 51. So it's 20, and the location on the z-axis is going to be 60, and there you go. So this is basically currently everything that we are going to do for our player, because we still cannot move the player, we still cannot do any of those things. So yeah, there you go. Before we wrap this video up, I know you're sad, we're still not going to do anything, we're going to, but still, this is a long tutorial series, so yeah, I don't want to overwhelm you in every single lecture. And what we're going to do is we are going to go over here inside of the project settings. And over here, we're going to click on input. So input is under engine. You see over here, we have the engine, and then over here, we have input. So click on that input, and we are going to create some action mappings. So over here, the first action mapping that we are going to create. So click on the plus button here, add the action mapping. So click now on the drop down list, and there you go. This is the action mapping. So this one I'm going to call jump. And basically over here, when we click on this, I'm going to filter for the space bar, and there you go. So what the hell is this, teacher? I'm confused. I want to, beat you up. Listen, if you beat me up, you're going to go into jail. You cannot watch these videos from jail, okay? So over here, this is the name of that action mapping. And in order for us to execute it, we need to press the space bar. So this is essentially what we are doing. As you can see, this is the name of the action mapping. Later on, when we use that inside of our blueprints, we are going to see that. Don't worry about it. We will see it. So when we use it in the blueprints, we are going to call it as jump. And it will be triggered when we press the space bar. And after that, we can, execute whatever when we press the jump action mapping, which in this case is the space bar. Of course, you can, put it whatever. You can click on this plus button to add another action mapping. And from here, for example, you can click on the key code A, for example, or I don't know, key code whatever. And here you have, as you can see, different options for different platforms. Here you have the gestures to pinch, rotate, and so on and so forth. For PC4, touchpad, button accents, you get the point. Xbox One, there you go. Global menu, view pause, blah, 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 blah. Android over here, as you can see. You see, for different options or for different platforms, you have different options that you can select. That when that is pressed, for example, spacebar is pressed on the keyboard, then we will execute this one. So I'm going to remove this, and when I say this one, I mean the jump action mappings. So now we're going to go into the axes mappings, and over here we are going to create the rotation. Why? Because we're going to rotate with our mouse, and over here I am going to filter for the mouse Y. There you go. Over here I'm going to set the scale to be -1. Don't worry, starting from the next video when we code the movement and everything, I'm going to explain why we set -1 and what that is. So next we're going to have the rotation X. So over here, rotation X. And for the rotation X, we are going to select the mouse X. And for this one, we're not going to say -1 over here. Again, don't worry, we will, talk about this. I'm going to create 2 more axis mappings, and this one is going to be move forward, and this one over here is going to be move right. Now, for us to move forward, we are going to do that by pressing the W key, and we're going to do that by pressing the S key. So going back over here, of course, for the S key, because backwards is the -1, I'm going to say minus over here for the value, because this is the coordinate system. You have X, you have Y, and you have Z. There you go, there you go, there you go. So this is X, this is over here Y, and this is over here the Z, and Z can go over here. So forward is the positive on the Z, upwards is the positive on the Y, and right is the positive on the X. On the left is the negative on the X, downwards is negative on the Y, and backwards is negative on the Z. So that's why if we want to move backwards, we are going to use here -1. Next, I am also going to attach over here or add 2 more axis mappings. One is going to be the up arrow. So it's up how am I calling this one? Actually, simply up, not the up arrow. There you go. So up, and this one is going to be down. And of course, for the down, we are also going to say minus. This will allow us to move forward with W and S or up or down arrow key on our keyboard. And we're going to do the same thing here for the move right. So over here, we're going to have the key code A. So when we press the key code A on our keyboard, we're going to move to the left side, which is the negative side. So there you go. When we press here the key code D, you see, we're going to go to the right side, which is the positive side. So the scale here is going to be 1. And over here, when we press the left arrow, so simply filter for the left, there you go. We're going to go to the left side, so minus over here. And when we press over here right, then we are going to go to the right side on the X. So we have everything prepared, and starting from the next video, we're going to code everything. If something was not clear in this video, make sure that you ask, because if you don't ask, you will never know. I will never show. And yep, I will see you guys in the next video. What it is, game dev gangster. Now we are going to finally move our character. And there are multiple ways how we can do that, because in programming and software development, engineering, whatever, there are always multiple ways how to solve things. And there is no, oh, this is the best way. Of course, in terms of performance, there are good and bad ways. That is totally fine. But, you know, people ask me often, why did you use this and did not use that? Well, because there are multiple ways how to do things. And one of the ways is going over here and right-clicking and creating a blueprint class and creating here a player controller. So I'm going to click here and create a player controller. I'm going to say here BP game character, so game character underscore controller. There you go. And of course, we need to double click this bad boy, open it over here. And now, since we are in the blueprint editor for it, I'm going to go into the event graph. So what's gonna happen over here? Well, first things first, here from the event begin play, which is, you see, event when play begins for this actor. Basically, if you have followed any of my Unity tutorials, you can think of the begin play like start or awake. So over here, this is going to be the initialization point. I am going to cast to BP game character. And casting basically means I'm going to convert something into something. So I'm going to cast, and who am I casting? I'm casting here get player character. And this is the main player character, so I'm going to attach them over here. How do I know that this get play or player character will return our player character? Well, because over here, if you remember, in the game mode, we set our Unreal Engine platformer game mode to be the default game mode, and from there we selected the BP game character to be the default pawn class. So basically, when we call this over here, it is going to get that pawn class, but still it's only you see, it returns a player character. It doesn't know that it's actually our BP game character. So this casting will convert this, which is a general player character, it will convert it into our BP game character. And then from here, you see, I can drag this node and I can say here promote to variable, and it is going to promote it as BP game character. I can call it here game character reference. So this means we have a reference to the game character. So now that we have a reference to our game character, we can basically move him forward. And how can we move him forward? Well, from here, I can filter for move forward. And look at this here, axis events move forward. Look at this here, input axis move forward. What is this? Well, basically, going back over here and inside of the input, this is that. So this is that move forward. You see? So this is how we can call that input axis that we have created. Same way we can call the action mappings. So now this input axis here will be executed whenever we press one of the following buttons. That is W, S, up, or down. So going back over here, what we are going to do, I'm going to say add movement. Or actually, we need to do that from our players. So game character here. And from here, I'm going to say add movement input. And the movement input is basically how we are going to move our player. And who is the target over here? So as you can see, the target is, you know, the pawn that we want to move, or in this case, the game character. So he is the target, but how are we going to move him? Well, we are going to move him by providing this axis value over here that we are going to put here in the scale value. But still, we need to also provide the world direction, basically meaning where we are going to go. And for that, from our game character, we are going to get the control rotation. And now that we have our control rotation, from it, we can get the forward vector because this is move forward. So from here, we're going to say get forward vector. And this is going to, give us the direction forward for the current rotation of our character. And we're simply going to plug that into the world direction. If I were to go back over here and hit the play button, and if I press the W key or the S key or the up arrow or the left or actually down arrow, nothing is going to happen. But teacher, you said this is going to move. Don't cry, okay? Do not cry. This is a tutorial. Don't cry. In order for our game controller to be acknowledged by our game, same as what we did here for our BP game character, we need to tell the default game mode who is the player controller. So it's not the default one, but it's actually the BP game character controller. So this is now the default game controller. If I go over here and hit the play button now, look at that. W, and he moves forward. S, and he moves backwards. And if I, press forward, he moves forward. This is the, back or down arrow key, and this is the forward or up arrow key. Look at that. So you see now how we are moving the character. And this is what I was talking about over here inside of our input. You see, I set the W to have the scale of 1. S has a scale of -1. Up has 1 and down has -1 because we are moving forward and backwards. So back is the negative, forward is the positive. So this is one of the ways how we can move our game character. I'm not going to do it this way. I'm just showing you that there are multiple ways how we can do it. So I'm going to go here into maps and modes and remove our default, or put the player controller class to the default player controller, and we're going to move the player from himself. So from here, from the game character, we're going to move our game character. So over here, I'm going to delete everything because we do not need it. Instead, over here, I'm going to right click and I'm going to filter for our input action jump. And look at that. So we have the jump, which is this one over here inside of our input. You see this one over here. So that is the name. And if we press the space bar, it will be executed. But what do we want to execute when we press the space bar? Look at here. When it's pressed, I simply want to call the jump function that is built into the game character. So this is a built-in function in the game character. If I go back over here and hit the play button, I'm pressing the space bar, and look at that. Look at that. Now, of course, over here, you can click and add more inputs. So that is up to you to test it out. I'm just showing you multiple ways how we can do things. So next, I am going to change the rotation of our character. And in order for me to do that, I'm going to right click over here and I'm going to filter for the rotation Y. So here is my rotation Y, and next I'm going to right click and filter for the rotation X. Here it is. So what's going to happen when I, use the rotation Y? Well, from here, I am going to say add controller pitch input. There you go. And from here, I'm going to place the axis value over here. And over here for our X, I'm simply going to say add controller yaw input. Look at that. And from here, I'm going to place the axis value over here. What is pitch and what is yaw? Well, basically, this is how in Unreal Engine axes are called. So if I click on my game character, is it over here? Let me just see. It's inside of the... Is it in the mesh? There you go. Finally, I found it. It's in the mesh. You see here in the rotation, if I hover over, X is called roll, Y is called pitch, and Z is called yaw. So this is how axes are called. X, Y, and Z. Basically, X is roll, Y is pitch, and Z is yaw. So if I go over here in the gameplay and hit the play button, so now look at that. I am moving the mouse left and right, and the player is rotating. But if I move the mouse up and down, which I'm currently doing, nothing is happening. Again, teacher, you lied to me. I'm disappointed in you, teacher. I'm going to know. Look, stop it. Stop it. Do not cry, okay? I'm going to show you now what is the issue. So if I move again the mouse up and down, nothing is happening. In order for us to fix this, we need to go over here and click on this BP game character self, this one here at the top. You see the now yellow one. And from there, inside of the pawn over here on the details tab, we need to click this use controller rotation pitch. So when you check that checkbox and compile and save that change, so when you check that checkbox, now we will be able to use the mouse to control the pitch input. So if I go back and hit the play button, if I move up, there you go, we're looking up. If I move down, we look down. So you see, there is no reason for you to cry if, I don't show you something right away in the tutorial. Patience, pupil, patience. You're learning from the master, so patience. Anyways, now we can, left and right, we can look left and right, we can jump, and we can look up and down. Going back to what I said over here, why do I set here the scale for the mouse Y to be -1? Well, if I set it to 1 and go back over here and hit the play button, look what is going to happen. If I move the mouse button up, he is looking down. If I move the mouse button down, he is looking up. And this is, if you're testing along with me, this is what you see. And this is basically the inverse that you see in video games. This is mostly in FPS, in shooter games. In the options, you can click the checkbox to use the inverse or something like that. It is called, I cannot remember. But basically that means when you move your mouse up, the character looks down. If you move the mouse down, the character looks up. So that is the reason why we need to set over here minus if you don't want it that way. So if you want your mouse to basically, or your character, when you move the mouse up, you want to look up, then you need to set -1. If you, move the mouse down and you want to look down, you get the point. That is the reason why. Now we are back to the movement. So over here, we are going to do our movement. I'm going to right click and we are going to get our move forward, which is this bad boy over here, and right click and we are going to get move right, which is this bad boy over here. So when we press, and these are the input axes, by the way, which we, defined over here, move forward, move right, and you can see, the inputs that we can receive for them. So what's going to happen when we click here to move forward? Well, again, we're going to say add movement input. And in order for this movement input to work, we need to put or plug in the axis value, and we need to plug in the direction. So the direction, we are going to get the controller or control rotation, and from the control rotation, get forward vector, because we need to know the forward destination of the current rotation. And basically, what is that forward? Well, that forward is, you see over here, if I select the player start, it's basically this is the forward, you see, going forward. There you go. So based on our current rotation, it is going to tell us where we are moving forward. If I hover over, rotate the world vector by the given rotation, you see, that's the forward one. And I'm going to copy this, movement input, and I'm going to place it over here and plug this in over here. This also goes over here. And for the direction, we still need to get the control rotation, but this time for the control rotation, we need to get the right vector because we are moving to the left or to the right side. So if I compile and save this, and now if I go into the gameplay and hit the play button, look at that, a fully functional character with a few lines of blueprint code. So now we can, maneuver these labyrinths over here that we have. We can jump as well. So there you go. Look at that. Jumpy, jumpy, jumpy. Like our player is a bunny, bunny, bunny. There you go. I'm also singing to you and you get the point. So voila. This is it. This is the movement for our character, and click on the player start to move over here. So move in the focus. By the way, over here, if I didn't say, and probably I did not say that so far in this videos, in order to, maneuver this you can hold the right mouse button and then with WASD key move. And while you're doing that, you can scroll the mouse wheel down to slow down the movement, or scroll the mouse wheel up to, pump up to, make the movement faster, and so on and so forth. You see, you get the point. Look at that. And again, I'm going to move it down and voila, there you go. So this was it when it comes to the movement. It's pretty simple. It's not that hard at all. We simply, in order to rotate, add the control pitch, jump function, it's already built in. Over here, add movement input, which is going to move the character in this direction by this given value. So if it's a positive value, it will move forward. If it's a negative value, it will move backwards. Now, of course, this value can be a higher or a lower speed, or basically what we can do is over here in the game character, and we can select him from the viewport, BP game character. So we can select the game character, and actually it's over here in the character movement. And over here you have different settings. So you have the character movement. This is the scale. Here is the character movement walking. So over here you have the maximum walk speed. You can play with these values. I'm not going to do that. So this is the walk speed. So the higher this value is, let's say for example, if I, add it or set it to 1,000. So the higher the value is, the faster the player is going to move. As you can notice, he is moving a little bit faster. I don't know if you can notice that, but definitely, you can notice if you're testing. I don't know if you can notice from the video. If you put it at 600, it's going to, be the default movement. You see, it's not moving that fast. So depending on what you want to do. So that can be up to you. You can also set the character movement or set that value. For example, create a variable and then set the value from the inspector. We will see that, how that goes, setting values from the inspector if you don't know that. Anyways, I want to cut this video out. I don't want to bore you anymore. This is all the wisdom I have to share. If something is not clear over here, make sure that you ask. The last step that I'm going to do is put all of this into comments so I can, select all the nodes that I want, and I can right click and go here at the bottom and click here, create comment from selection, and I can, call this one character jump, and, simple as that. I can select these and right click, and over here I can say character rotation, and last but not least I can select these over here and I can right click and I can say character movement. There you go, and I can simply compile and save that. Now of course then you can move all of these with the comment, and comments are used to group blocks of code or for you to know what they are when you later on come back to your game and yada yada yada. You get the point. So again, if something is not clear for all of this here, make sure you ask in the comment down below and I will help you out, and I will see you in the next video. Alrighty, my Gap Dev Gangsteronios. Moving forward, now we have the player and we have the level set up. So next we need some obstacles. So over here inside of our blueprints, I'm going to right click and create a new blueprint class, and it is going to inherit from the actor. And this one is going to be BP underscore moving obstacle. So obstacle, there you go. Of course, double click this bad boy, open it over here in the blueprint editor, and we are going to add some, components to it. So over here, we're going to filter for the static mesh. There you go. And I'm simply going to call this one mesh and then dash and then obstacle. There you go. Compile and save that. For the obstacle, or what am I going to use as a static mesh or a 3D model, that is, I am going to use a cube. So it's actually, here it is, shape cube, and there you go. And also here for the material, I'm going to use the clay material. So the clay old one, this is the one that I'm going to use. Hit compile and save that. And next we are going to add 2 more of these. But before, and when I say 2 more of these, I mean 2 more components. But I'm also going to drag the mesh obstacle and make it the root component of our moving obstacle blueprint. And next on it, I'm going to right click and filter here in the search for an arrow. And here you go. So we're going to have the start point, and I'm going to Control C, Control V, and duplicate this. And this one is going to be the end point. So here, instead of the start point, I'm going to rename it to end point and compile and save that. So where are the arrows? Do you see the arrows? I don't see the arrows. Anyways, let me just select this. And there you go. For whatever reason, the arrow, one arrow is this right here, basically. So for the starting point, what I am going to do is I'm going to set it at 137 for the x-axis. There you go. This is going to be the starting point. The end point, I'm going to select it and I'm going to set it to minus 222. And I'm also going to rotate this bad boy by 180 degrees. And basically that's all there is to it. You see now? now look at how it looks like. So the starting point can also be 2, 2, 2, and it is now equally distributed among the cube. And we're going to use these starting points, especially inside of the editor, inside of the game, to make them or set them here, basically separate them. So set one over here, set another over here, and the cube is going to move between those 2 points. But for that, we need a few variables. So over here, I'm going to right click. One is going to be frame time. So basically, if you didn't see me where I clicked, it's over here. You see this variables when you have over here on the plus button. So if you hover over it, click the plus button, the next variable is going to be our movement speed. The next variable is going to be the current location. There you go. The next variable is going to be the target location. So target location, location. Next, we have the move to start point. So move to start point. And don't worry, I'm going to explain now for every single variable what we are going to use. So this one's going to be start point location. And last but not least, this is going to be our end point location. So compile and save that. What is happening? What are all of these variables? First things first, the frame time is going to be a float. So you can change because the red one over here, it denotes it's a Boolean. So you can click on the variable over here and you can hover over and you will see that this is a Boolean. There are 2 ways how we can change the type of the variable. So you can click on it and over here in the details tab, you see variable type. From here, we can select the drop down list and we can select a float. Or we can click over here on our variable. Look at this red icon. So you can click on that, and from there you can select the type of the variable. So frame time is going to be a float. Movement speed is also going to be a float. The current location is going to be a vector because it represents X, Y, and Z. The target location is also going to be a vector. The frame time, we're going to see that in a second what it is. The movement speed is the speed by which we're going to move. The current location is the current location of the cube. The target location is the target location where we are going towards to. Move to start point is going to determine if we are going to move to this start point in the level or are we going to move to the end point over here. And start point location is going to be a vector because we're going to get the location of the starting point, and the end point location is also going to be a vector, and there you go. The movement speed is going to be a public variable over here. And the move to start point is also going to be a public variable over here. What does that mean to be a public one? First things first, I clicked on this eye icon, which will make it public. That means that now over here, when I put this cube in the game, and if I go over here and click on the cube, look at here, I have the movement speed and the move to start point as public variables, and I can change them here from the inspector or the details tab. And this is what I meant when I said in one of the previous videos that you can set, that was about players movement speed. You can set the movement speed over here, you can change it to whichever value you want. By default, I'm going to set here, and for the game character we need to save it. So over here, the default value for the movement speed, I'm going to set that to be 200. That is the default value. Compile and save. So over here inside of our game, you will see now that the default value is 200. Of course, we can change that. We can add it or set it to any value that we want. So now it is the time to go back over here and in the event graph do our thing. So I'm going to delete this one, and from here I'm going to remove these, comments or whatever this is, or you see this over here, and remove it. So in the begin play, we need to set the current values for all of these variables. So we need to take the current location and we need to set that value. So the current location is going to be equal to get actor location. So this is the current location of our actor, e.g. the player, or actually the cube, the obstacle that is moving. So this is the current location of it. Next, we need to set the start point location. So from here, I'm going to say start or set the start point location. So plug this in, and the start point location is going to be this over here. So I'm going to get the start point from here, and from it, I'm going to get his world location. So here I'm going to say get world location, which is going to give us the world location inside of the game, which is basically over here. So it is going to give us the location of the starting point over here inside of the game. So for example, if this arrow moves over here, so if we position this arrow over here, when we use get world location, is going to tell us this location over here of this element. So this is what we are doing over here, and we are going to plug this in. This is the start location. Next, we also need to set or create the end location. So over here, I'm going to drag a node, and the execution order flows over here into the end point location. And from here, take the end point, and I am going to get the world location from the end point. So position it like here and plug in the values over here. That's all there is to it. So now what we are going to do is we're going to determine where we are going to go, or basically determine the target location. So from here, we are going to go inside of a branch, and a branch is an if-else statement basically, which will denote what is true, what is false. And the condition for that is move to start point. So I'm going to plug in the condition, or the condition into this, move to start point. If it's true, then we are going to say set target location to the start point location. So from here, I'm going to get the start point location, and this goes over here. There you go. I'm going to copy and paste this node. So if it's false, meaning that we should not move to the start point, that means we are going to move to the end point. So from here, I'm going to plug in the end point location. So now we have all the info we need in order for us to start moving. And that is going to happen over here inside of the tick event. And by the way, just briefly going through over here, so we're just setting the current location, setting the start point and end point, and from here, using a branch, we're going to determine, are we going to move to the start point location, or are we going to move to the end point location? So depending on if this value is true or false, and we can set it over here. So I can click on it, I can set it to be true, for example, compile and save. But over here from our gameplay, when I select the moving obstacle, I can also uncheck that value and set it to be false. So that means that one of these can move to the left, to the right, or actually to the start point. Others can move to the end point, and you get the point. How can we move to those locations? Well, from here, first I'm going to set the frame rate. And the frame rate is going to be this delta seconds. And basically delta seconds is the time it takes to complete a frame. That's all there is to it. And we're setting that value over here. And from there, I'm going to set the current location. There you go. So the current location is going to have a value by using v-interp to constant. So from here, I'm going to right click and I'm going to say v-interp, and we want this one, interp to constant, and I'm going to plug this in over here. So this, if I hover over, tries to reach the target at the constant rate. So this is the current location, we need to plug it in. This is the target location. This is the delta time, and that is the reason why we need this over here, delta time. And this is the speed, which is going to be our movement speed. So over here, I am going to plug in the current location, which goes over here. Next, I'm going to plug in the target location, which goes over here. And now we need to plug in the delta time, which is the frame time, basically. So from here, I am going to plug that in. There you go. This is the delta time, and we can change the name over here to delta time. So delta time, which is, more understandable. It will not be confusing for the frame time, but basically frame and delta are the same thing. And last but not least, we need to plug in our movement speed, and I'm going to plug it in over here and compile and save that. And compile and save that. So what is this going to do? This is basically, as I said, we have the current location, which is this right here. Imagine that the current location is here, and we have the target location, which is this bad boy over here. So the target location is here. So this v-interp to constant is going to move us from here to here by using this delta time and the speed. I don't know how this calculation is performed behind the scenes. Don't even ask me. I'm not going to, I don't know. So I'm not going to answer. But it is going to do that. So it is going to go from this location to this location using these two variables to calculate that some way. Of course, this interp speed, the higher the value, the faster it will get to this target location. So the higher the value, the faster it will get. Currently, the movement speed has a value of 200. If you set it to 1000, this will, work faster, and so on and so forth. So over here, next, I'm going to say add, or actually set actor location. And from there, in order to set the actor location, I'm simply going to plug in the new location and compile and save that. And that's all there is to it. So what we are going to do right now, I am going to take this moving obstacle and I'm going to rename it to moving obstacle, like that. And I'm going to call it 1. And over here inside of the level, right click and create a subfolder. I'm going to call this one moving obstacles. There you go. And plug this in over here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this. I have pressed the E key and I am going to rotate this to 90 degrees. So it can be -90 or it can be 90, your choice, whatever, it's the same result. So now that I have this moving obstacle selected over here inside of the details tab, I'm going to move this a little bit down. Look here in the details tab. We can click on the start point and I can, and by the way, I'm just going to position this one. So location X is going to be 0. Actually, no, not for the starting point, but for the moving obstacle. There you go. Let me just see. Actually, I'm going to move this a little bit upwards. So it can be something like that. Or let's say 100 on the Z. And it can be 0 on the Y, which means it will be positioned in the middle. But now I can take the starting point and I can put the starting point over here. There you go. Up to here is the cube or up to here the cube is going to go. And I can say 885, not 882, it's 885. There you go. And for the end point, I can say -885. Voila. If I run the game, but before I do that, I'm going to click here on the play. Look at this play. I'm going to click here and you see here spawn player at. I'm not going to use the default player start, which is going to spawn me here where the player start is, this right over here. Instead, what I'm going to use is this current camera location. So it is going to spawn the player at the current location where their camera is. Of course, later on, we're going to fix that. But for testing purposes, I'm going to do it right like this. I'm going to hit here play. And I am going to, can I eject myself? Actually, I cannot. Where is my eject? Let me just see over here. Here it is, my eject. So now I can eject the player. Okay, moving this over here so that I can have these. And there you go. So I'm going to stop again and go here so that we can see what is happening. So play, eject, look at that. So it is moving towards the start point, but when it gets there, that's all there is to it. It simply stops. So it simply stops. I'm also going to take this start point and probably move it a little bit. So start point, let's go just a little bit over here, for example. There you go, 922. So 922, and the end point is going to be at -922. Voila. So it's going to move from one wall to another. So it is working. It gets to one point, but it is not going back to the other point, back and forth, back and forth. And in order for us to do that, we need to test it out. So from here, when we set the actor location, this right here is going to do the thing that we explained. So it's going to go from the current to the target using these two variables. We are setting that to the current location and setting that to the actor's overall main general master location. But from there, we need to go over here inside of the branch. So I'm going to go into the branch and we need to test a condition. And that condition is going to be, we are first going to get over here. So I'm going to say get actor location. And then I am going to get the target location. So from here, I'm going to drag the target location. I'm going to say get the target location. And I am going to subtract. So I'm going to say minus vector. And I'm going to subtract from the current location the target location. After that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to test the vector length. There you go. So we have the vector length. And if this vector length, so from here, I'm going to test if it's less than or equal to. So less than or equal to another float. And that float is value of 0. And then I'm going to plug this in over here. So what is this, teacher? What are you doing? Essentially over here, the code that I wrote, or the blueprint code that I wrote, it's going to take the current location of the actor and the target location, which means where we are going. If the current actor location is here and the target location is here, I'm going to subtract from the current location the target location, which means this right here, I'm going to subtract this right here. And the result of that, I'm going to get the length. And basically the length is going to be the distance that is left between these 2 points. If that distance is less than or equal to 0, that means that our obstacle has reached its target location. So the obstacle has reached its target location. I repeat again. The obstacle, just kidding, you get the point. So if the distance between these 2 points is less than or equal to 0, we reached our location. We reached our location. That was hard to say, fast. Anyways, moving forward. So subtracting from our current location, the target location will give us the distance between those 2. And if that is true, so if this right here is true, if the distance is less than or equal to 0, we are going to go inside of another branch. And this branch is going to test the condition, are we moving to the start point? So currently, are we moving to the start point? That means we are getting near the start point. So if that is the case, from here, I'm going to say set new target location. So set target location, this goes over here, and this goes over here. In both cases, we are going to set the target location. But if move to start point is true, that means we are getting near the starting point. So the new target location is going to be the end point, which means the new target location is the end point, and over here vice versa, if this move to start point is false, that means we're getting near the end location, so the new location or the new target location should be the starting point. Now from here we also need to set move to start point, so set that value. Here it's going to be false and here it is going to be true. And we need to check this checkbox for the true. Compile and save. What the hell is this, teacher? I am going to destroy you. Do not destroy me. I don't encourage you to destroy me. I will not be able to make these tutorial videos. So what is the trick over here? We explained what we are doing over here. If that is true, we are getting into the new branch. If the current movement is towards the move start point, if that is true, the new target location needs to be the end point location. And now move to start point is false because the new target is the end point. So we are moving to the end point, which means the move to start point is false. Over here, if the move to start point was false, that means we were traveling to the end point location. So the new location now is the start point location. And when we set it, then we also need to make sure that the move to start point location or move to start point is set to true, because currently move to start point, you see, it's the new location. Compile and save and go back over here. And let me just save this current, hit the play button, eject myself, and you're going to notice that this cube now is going to bounce back and forth between these locations. You see, it is going to bounce back and forth between the locations. What is left for us to do is to create more of these obstacles. So I am going to take this one, moving obstacle, and I am going to position it over here. And then I am going to hold Alt and create a new one, and Alt and create a new one, and again holding Alt, creating a new one. But now I'm going to select all 4 of these and holding Alt, creating more new ones. You get the point. Holding Alt, creating even more new ones. Let's go, try it out. There you go. Voila. So these are how many of these obstacles I'm going to have. And by the way, if I hit the play button and over here, you're going to notice that all of these are moving in the same direction. This is the reason why if you select these obstacles, I have set the move to start point to be editable here and the movement speed will be editable here. So what I'm going to do for this one is going to have the move to start point checked and the speed is going to be 500. Moving on the next one, it is going to have the move to start point unchecked and the speed is going to be, let's say, 400. For example,